Agent Fresh the Squid 35. I love that username. So if you fuck your gender bent self, is it self-cess, incest, or masturbation? Um, Take that to Reddit if you really want to know the answer. I saw you in some MLP cringe comp yet. Oh. I'm still so sad that I never managed to actually get that link. If somebody could find the link that where I was in a cringe comp, I would so love that. Matriocyan. I'm gonna call you Robert. Actually, I'll call you Bob. Hi, Bob. MLP is stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. I'm a fan of Undertale, but definitely not one. I've seen some shit though, real shit. Yeah, look at the Sonic fandom. Don't come to me trying to throw shade and then, like, not follow through. Like, I want to see what you have to say. Because you're probably right. Porn? Yeah, that happens. Weirdest part of every fandom is the fangirls. False. The weirdest part of every fandom is the porn. Hello YouTube, Baconlicious here. Before we get started, I am extremely sick. Not like extremely, but like my voice is like super fucked. And usually I would try to avoid recording when I'm sick, but I am getting my wisdom teeth out the day after I record this, so I will not be able to talk coherently for the next 3 days. So I wanted to get this recording out of the way so that I could edit it while I am incapable of talking. So without further ado, I posted a video called The Undertale Fandom and its OCs like 2 years ago. It's an ancient video. I kind of hate it because it's like my old art style and using a My Little Pony OC that I don't use anymore. But at some point, I believe that I said for people to leave their OCs down in the comments and I would go ahead and like rate it and stuff. It's 2 years later and I have not followed through with that. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle that. I want to be careful going forward in this because a lot of this is my own opinion and there are a lot of issues with the idea of cringe culture. When you're just starting out, it's okay to make stories that wouldn't be approved of by the general internet. And it's okay to make stories that wouldn't be approved of by the general internet once you know how to write. I write stories that nobody will ever see because they sit in my Google Drive and they rot because they're bad. But I genuinely think that it's important for artistic development to make stuff that wouldn't necessarily be approved of. Now, that's not to say that you want to stay stuck in that particular rut. You want to be able to grow, and that's what I'm trying to do. But if you're okay with turning something out to the internet and people coming back at you and saying this is bad, go ahead, by all means, like, do it. I'm not stopping you. But if you really want to improve, like, that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to help you improve. You know, take what I say with a grain of salt, or take it to heart if you want to. That's up to you. But all I'm doing is trying to help you improve. My Undertale human OC is neither Frisk clone nor one of the souls that Asgore has captured, though I did ship her with Azrael. Since I don't have a lot of details on Pinksy Heart Wishes, I'm just gonna say that shipping it with Azrael I think is okay. Honestly, like, I don't mind shipping with the main characters. I think that I might not have managed to actually convey that adequately in the first video. Shipping characters with canon characters isn't necessarily a bad thing. The issue is when there isn't an applicable story to how it happens. I think that because your OC isn't a Frisk clone or one of Asgore's souls, I think that definitely improves it. There's a lot of issues with, like, shipping Frisk with Sans, but, like, that's a whole other story that we can get into later if I choose to. So I actually, from the sounds of it, your OC, like, isn't horrible, but like I said, I actually don't have a whole lot of details on it. Let's go with no. Yours was a Frisk clone, and you're so glad that you realized it before everything went shit. It isn't a human soul that Asgore has, it's an original soul. She's lazy, but she hates puns, so that's not Sans-like. Oh, me too. Sans is my least favorite character, so I never ship my OC with him. Except as a kid, I shipped her with female Frisk and Fresh Sans, but that's disgusting. I've actually talked to the person who made Fresh Sans, like, a little bit on Tumblr. Fresh Sans can't feel emotions, so there are a few issues if you ship your character with Fresh Sans, but that's like a whole, like I said, that's a whole other thing that we can talk about later. Female Frisk, I mean, like, you do you, mate. From the sounds of it, that was a former thing, so I think Personally, I think that it's good that you did manage to move away from that. And just because female Frisk tends to be sexualized a lot, like a little too much, unlike DeviantArt and Tumblr, so that is a mess. I really like the idea of your character, and I'd like to see some more content with it, because the idea that she's lazy but hates puns, but then would also be interacting with Sans is really funny to me. OC isn't a Frisk clone, but I keep it to myself because I don't have a DeviantArt account. There are a few places that I would say that you can post your art without posting it to DeviantArt. In fact, I would say don't post your work on DeviantArt, because it will lead to disaster. Addressing the character designs thing, character design just takes practice. So if you're looking to improve your character design, I would say if you're going for outfit issues, I would say just look for something that you think you would enjoy or your character would enjoy based on their personality, and then be willing to look up color theory. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to. Like, a lot of my characters, I doubt, follow, like, strict color theory rules or all over the place. But don't be afraid to look up color theory if you're really wanting to be able to avoid making, like, a horrible eye-bleeding OC. I have an Undertale OC named Dusk, and I ship her with Kara. Dusk is alive and human. I'm going to end up saying this a lot, but you just have to be really careful when it comes to shipping with main characters with setting up the story correctly. So if you have a living human that is shipped with somebody who isn't necessarily alive, whose soul is probably shattered still, you're probably going to have some issues with managing to get that to work. Personally, I think there's going to be some issues with managing to get a human to be shipped with a ghost that only a few people can see. That kind of sounds a little weird, just that particular concept. Don't worry, my OCs are not even a tiny bit like Sans. I did ship one with Gino, but then I realized that Gino and Burley wouldn't mix very well. There are a lot of instances where you can alter the canon personality, but if you alter the canon personality too much, people are going to get onto you about it being OOC or out of character. But if you manage to do it pretty well, then it won't necessarily be an issue. But I think that it's really good to be able to look at it and say, this wouldn't be a very good relationship. I admire people who are able to say that. My OC doesn't even bother you unless you do a quest for her and she gives you an item which helps you heal, but if you break it, she gets upset and will fight you because she's sensitive. I really like this character concept because you manage to incorporate it into the game mechanics, which is something that a lot of people tend to overlook, and like, that's fine. I think it's fine, but being able to incorporate an OC into the game mechanics is something that has always interested me. So I really like this character concept, and I think that you could go places with it. OC has red hair, though she has hairstyle with white tips. OC, name, oh geez, I didn't realize how long this was. There's a lot to unpack here. First off, what I want to say from reading it is, I'm kind of hesitant to say that it's a Mary Sue. I think that the fact that she has to unlock those powers is something that is really useful. The main stickler that I have with this is the fact that it seems very loosely to be based on the idea of the multi-dimension thing, but there isn't a whole lot of other incorporation. Like, you're focused on specifically the Undertale and the Minecraft universe. I think that it would be helpful for you as a story writer, not necessarily for your OC, but for everything, if you go ahead and add more to that particular universe so that you have more stories than just this character, and that way you can kind of balance everything out. So it doesn't feel like this is the center focus, and if you make other characters that have similarly tragic backstories or that are similarly powerful, that way it won't seem like she is so Mary Sue-ish. Like I said, she's not like icon Mary Sue, like she's not horrible, but I think that there could be a little bit more built into the world specifically to make it work a little better. But I actually really do like this concept, and I've done some stuff along these similar lines. I think that if there was a little more thought into it, that's not to say that you've thought it out, but I think that if there was a little more thought into the concept as a whole, I think that there would be something really interesting in there that you could work on as a long-term project. My Skelehuman OC Rick is a narcissistic comedian that tries to help as many people as he can, but he can get a little wacko when you hurt his brother Alex. My character will fight you if you commit any acts of genocide. Like I said before, for Wobegong, I think the fact that you can manage to get it within game mechanics is interesting, but this does feel a little bit just like a copy of Sansa's story, and I don't think that that's necessarily bad, but since I don't have all of the details, I can't say whether or not this is something that would or wouldn't be, like, considered cringe by the fandom. I like this. I do, but the first thing that catches me off guard is the Skelehuman. I would just say that make sure that you have a really good reason for why it's a Skelehuman. The other thing is, I would be careful in making sure that it's not necessarily a copy, unless that's how you're kind of following it, is like every single timeline and universe follows the same format, and your character is just like the Sans of that universe. Alternate characters aren't OCs, they are just that, alternate characters. ACs, OCs wouldn't be based off already existing characters. If the personas for 6 of their souls, I'd say AC. Not fan children, ship children. The ship children thing, yes, that's correct, and I apologize for that. I do actually really like these Sans fangirls. Sashley has definitely, I think Sashley has kind of moved on, and I still love her though. Casual Susan, I think I looked into briefly, and I love Scootaloo loves Sans, because her art is just freaking fantastic. But I would say that ACs and OCs are still pretty much the same thing, because the 6 souls don't have confirmed personalities, they don't have confirmed designs, they basically don't have confirmed anything. So you can't say that it's an alternate character if there isn't a character that you are basing that off of. You're only basing it off of a concept, so I would say at that point it would be an original character. I have, however, had a discussion with somebody where you really, if you're talking about an original story that isn't based in a fandom, you don't want to use OC, you just want to say my character. So if I'm talking about characters that I'm writing stories for, I would say they're not original characters, they're just characters. But so that's why I would say that it would be okay where even in this situation, it is okay to use the term OC because it is an original character within this concept. I don't really like the idea that you would call it an AC just because like I said, it's not an alternate of anything. It still technically has an original concept. It is something that somebody has put thought into because there isn't enough information for the basis for it to be an alternate of something. My OC is God, genocide, friend. Ganta, I would say that from the looks of it, I would say that you're probably a role player, which isn't bad. The issue that I currently have with this is I don't think that this particular OC should be put into a normal timeline, because if you have an infinite attack and infinite defense, I think that that should be saved for a separate AU. Like these characters right here, it looks like there is like an AU that you've made specifically around this, which I think is good, because I think that trying to incorporate somebody with this level of power into a normal universe will become problematic, because it will feel like there is little to no depth to their character if they can't develop because of their basic power amount. So while I actually do like this, and I like the fact that you have the different phases and stuff, and the fact that you are following the game mechanics, which like I've said is something that I really like, I really do hope that it is in a separate universe from the original timeline, or like other timelines where the characters are within kind of like a box of power, just because I feel like there isn't much in the way of development in a story that you could do with that. I have an Undertale OC named Lavender. She's strange, calm cat with a sword and a furry cape. When attacked, she'll attack you back with no mercy. I did not ship her with any of the characters. She has no friends. Good on shipping her with none of the characters. Bad on the fact that she has no friends. I would say that she should have at least one companion, because there are psychological downfalls to the idea that somebody is alone all the time. And while I think that I like the concept with the calm cat and the cape and stuff, and the attack, but I think that if you don't address the psychological effects of being alone all the time, there will be a lack of weight to your character at that point. So I would say develop the character a little more, at least write an interesting story, or like even just like dump some ideas on paper so you have somewhere to go with the character, but just leaving them alone will end up hurting the character more than it will making them interesting. I have an OC for Undertale. Beautiful daughter was born. A few things with this. I like the story. I think that you really should make sure that you develop the family. A 5-year-old would not be capable of climbing a mountain. Just gonna put that out there. I think that there should be some build up to the same day thing. I think that a couple days should pass to allow her to become weaker, just because if there is no obvious reason for her soul to stop, it's going to be extremely weird. So if you give a reason before or after for it, I think that that's fine, but if it just stops with no reason other than to make her soul become the soul of love, there's a lack of development there and a lack of story that is just going to kind of leave a plot hole and unanswered questions. I also think that you should flesh out the backstory a little bit, because if I remember correctly, I don't think Toriel had moved out at the point of the second child falling, but I also think that you need to explain why Gaster is there. I would like to know her design though, because I like the idea of the purple to black ombre. In saying that, I think that if her hair is colored, it should incorporate into her soul somehow. So if her soul is purple, it would make sense for her hair to be purple, but if her soul is like pink or something, I would say that you should probably go with pink instead, because it would work better in terms of explaining why her hair is that color. Fangirl by my OC, Tyria is just very good friends with Sans and others. She does not belong in Undertale, so she has her own timelines, the Tyria Tale timelines. So that I like. I have a similar kind of story where they're good friends with people from timelines, but at the same time they do have like a separate story. So I do the same thing, and I that's something that I really do like working with. As long as they're respectful and don't fight over Sans. Yes, that is the issue that I have with Sans fangirls, and that's where, like, okay, you can make a Mary Sue, you can make an eye-bleeding character, honestly, I don't care, you just need to be willing to get hate and then not make videos complaining about the fact that you get hate, because that also bugs the heck out of me. But also, don't attack other people. Literally, genuinely making threats on the internet or telling people to kill themselves is, like, illegal. Like, that is genuinely, like, a felony. You need to stop doing that. That is not okay. And that is my primary issue with Sans fangirls. So if you don't do that, okay, cool. You're good in my book. I couldn't care less about how your character looks or the story as long as you don't fight other people, okay? That's all I ask. I have an Undertale Deltarune OC. She's well balanced, has a good backstory and appearance, but what will throw people off the fact she's a bit human, giving her a human torso, arms, and head, a fox ears, tail, legs, and claws. So here's the thing. I think that the human monster mix OC is probably a little overused, but because it's Undertale, I think it's excused. The issue that sometimes comes with that is that you need to have a plausible reason for how a monster that was probably mostly animal and a human came to have a child, but as long as you can explain that, I don't think that there's an issue with it in this particular fandom. So I would say that I like this concept, and I really want to hear more about your OC genuinely, because I like characters like that. I don't think that it would be overused in this particular topic. OC is part of an AU, it's called Lap's Tale. Okay, so I glanced through it. I do really like this concept, and you have it planned out. You have, like, an explanation as to how it happened, so that's good. That's set. You also created an alternate universe for it so that you're not trying to incorporate it into the main timeline, which is also something that I tend to like more than when people are trying to put their characters in the main timeline. So I do like yours, and I want you to keep working on it, because that's a concept that's really cool, and I like it. My OC is a human named Lola with a monster soul. I actually do like this. I would say that since she has bullet attacks and wings, don't give her any more than that. And I also do like her story, and I'm glad that you have the device instead of her just being able to do it on her own. I want to know more about the AU, because I think that you should have that develop before your character starts leaving it. But I do think that this works well. I never saw a Goat OC before. Goat OCs, they exist. I know they do, but they're pretty rare. If you're making an alternate universe, there tend to be versions of Azrael that you can and should use. So I've seen Goat OCs, just not a whole lot. Undertale OC named Ericassi. Erisans' daughter, Smart lives with Sans and Papyrus. There should be a plausible reason as to why Erisans had a child. From the sounds of it, your character doesn't do universe hopping, which I think is something that you could incorporate, but that you want to be careful with. It sounds like after, like, a while of, because it's been 3 years, you've kind of learned how to manage to adequately, like, work with a character. So I think that where you are right now actually isn't bad, and I don't think that you have to stop using her. I think that she would be useful story-wise, but as long as you're just careful in how you use her, I think that she'd actually be a fine character. That's all the comments I have, so after 2 years, I finally managed to get you guys this video. I'm so sorry this took so long. I'm probably not going to do this again just because like I'll lose track of which comments I went over and didn't go over. Honestly, I think that a lot of you guys actually do have good OCs or a good basis for an OC. And like I said, I don't want to make you hate your OC, and I don't want to make you completely revamp it. But as a writer, I really want to be able to help other people write. And so if you genuinely want help, go find people who are writing or in the process of writing, or like you could hit me up at my Tumblr. I feel like in the 2 years that I've been gone and not paying attention to the Undertale fandom, I think that people have kind of grown up a little bit, especially with the release of Deltarune, and the passage of time since Undertale was released. I think that people are finally starting to get an idea of how to make characters, judging from what you guys have sent me. So thank you so much for the character submissions. It was actually super fun, but it's a lot of effort to make these videos, and I like super don't want to do this again. Goretober speed paints are coming up. Bye!